Welcome back to the channel. Something has happened to the clutch, or in the clutch compartment anyway, which is inside there. So I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, but I'll start it and see if we can see the sparks coming out from underneath. So I'm thinking the thrust race bearing could have seized, so I'm going to try and split it and see what's wrong. Guess I'll start with taking the bonnet off. Each of these sides has 4 bolts, a 7/16. I don't know if these are the standard bolts. They do look like they've been changed somewhere along the line. Now the Phillips head holds on this part. I'm going to take the battery out, get that out of the way. Disconnecting the negative terminal first. That way, if you bump the panel or something while you're undoing the positive, it doesn't arc. You get no sparks or anything. Now I'm going to undo the bonnet stay, which comes off the front of the fuel tank. I'm going to undo it from the front of the fuel tank, but you could undo it from any of these 3 bolts. This is a 7/16. Again, I don't know if this is a standard bolt or if it's been changed. Now for the 4 bolts on the opposite side. Now this side is connected by the hinge. Fold that up and lift the bonnet off. A couple of bolts under here. And there's also 2 bolts on this side. I'm going to disconnect the cable for the hour meter, and I think it shows you how many revs you have and all that. Well, I've got the pliers, I may as well take this pin out. Throttle control. Now I'm going to take out that bolt and that bolt. Same 2 bolts from the opposite side. One's just in here, just there. The other one is there. They are an 11/16. Get that spring out of the way. I was hoping not to have to take the filters off. Looks like I might have to. These are a 1/2 inch. don't know if that bolt's been changed. Seems to be an 18mm. This is the other side. They're 11/16. I'm going to take off the starter motor. These are 11/16. There's also a bolt behind there. And that is so heavy. Don't forget to disconnect your wires first. And that seems to be a 12mm. These are all 11/16. This would probably be a good time to get a jack underneath there. I'm going to use a trolley jack with a bit of wood so I don't damage the sump. So that's where I've got the jack with a bit of wood. Then I've got some stands underneath with a bit of wood on top. I used a hammer and bashed that bit of wood in there once I got the stands to as close to the right height as I could. A flat, large screwdriver will do this. The two bolts at the top here. There's two pins at the bottom there, go into two holes. So when you undo them, you just lift it up, it comes off. I'm going to see if I can get the steering arm off from here. Down inside here, somebody's put some 8mm self-tapping bolts, 8mm tech screw. Now I'm going to take off the air intake. As you can see, I've just set it over the axle. Hopefully it's not in the way there. The only thing I have to fit this is a 38mm. Okay, there's a grease nipple in the way. I have to take that out. This seems to be a 7/16 or something else that's really close, because this is really tight on here. Trying to get the wheels reasonably straight, so when it comes apart straight. Before I take this steering arm off, see if I can get it off from here. This is a 1/116. Now I've left the nut on there so the end of the thread doesn't get damaged. Oh, there it goes. Bend that back. Okay. Put that nut back on there so I don't lose it. Gotta make sure these bits of wood are tapped in. I'll put them bits of wood there because of the movement from that pin that goes through there. Don't want to pull the front half forward and have it tilt to one side. I want it to stay upright. Do that back up. And put the grease nipple back in. We just have to use the 12mm. It's a bit loose on there, but it was enough to get it past the radiator. Because the 7/16 doesn't sit underneath, it's a bit too thick to sit under that nipple. Don't forget to take off the oil pressure gauge line. Just move that to the side out of the way a bit. The voltage regulator is up under there. This is on the other side. This slot, so you can lift it up. And you either go forward or backwards to get it out. So that's the voltage regulator. These are all 11/16. Not sure if this bolt is the right bolt. It is always hung out, so it's probably been replaced with one that's too long. So I'll just loosen them off a bit. Now for the other side. I'll loosen these ones off the same. So I'm going to leave the bolts about there, so I don't lose control of it while I split it. So I can get it that little bit, and then once I feel like I'm right to go the rest of the way, I will. Just in case as it starts to split, wants to fall off the jack or something. Making sure the jack has pressure on it. Starting to come apart already. I can only just fit an 11/16 socket in there, so I might be able to get away with it. Horrible angle. This would probably be a good time to make sure the wooden wedges are in tight enough. Look how much that's starting to come apart already. Have to jack up a little bit more. Apparently the stands have come loose. Okay, see if that works. There's a bit of wood under it. It's only just not long enough. There we go. That's better. Like all hydraulic type jacks, they will slowly go down. That's why the stands are there. We have a jack fail while the stands are a backup. Length difference between that hole and so far all the other holes, which could be why that hole on the other side has that bolt hanging out. And the exhaust pipe's in the way to get that one out, but it doesn't have to come all the way out anyway. It's already loose enough. it's only a short one. Now for the other side. Now this is the one that was hanging out a bit. Yeah, someone's put that bolt in there which doesn't have as much plate under it there as here, so let's say that one's meant to be that slightly shorter bolt that was on the other side. That was the last bolt, so it can come apart now. I'm just wheeling the front wheels a little bit at a time, one side then the other. Make sure the gap is even at the top and bottom. Just checking to make sure I haven't missed anything that does need to come out. I'll pull on the front jack, see if I can get it to go. Don't think that did much at all. Definitely works better pulling on the wheels. Trying to get it to come out as straight as I can. Make sure you keep an eye on the jacks while you do this. You don't want to have a jack slip. One of the chocks of wood just fell out. One of these pieces of wood just fell off the front axle. So keep an eye on them too. Going to cut all these ties. Careful not to cut any wires. Get to that. These ones are just plastic. Right, let's just have a loop at the back. So just bring each wire up and slip it through the gap at the top. Now the wires on the generator, yellow with a green stripe on the top. That's on the side one. And the brown wires on the back of the generator. What I might have to do is put a plug down here because I can't get that off. Okay, that one holds the headlight wires. Right, I just cut the headlight wire. Should have done that earlier because now I can get rid of this. So now the front grill's out of the way, and I'll just put plugs on the headlight wires later. Pick a spot that's nice and easy to rejoin it. Carefully pull them through. One at a time or you won't get the plugs through. Ensure nothing's getting caught up. Throttle linkage got caught. And going by the wear on these, seized thrust race bearing. Certainly doesn't want to move much. So that's what it does when you push the clutch pedal down. Thrust race bearing comes forward, pushes on these, making the clutch work. Now I'm just going to put a stand under the back of the engine here. Because this jack does slowly go down. And before you undo the clutch bolts, which are 6 bolts around there, you'll need 3 bolts. Normally it comes with shipping bolts when you buy a new clutch assembly. These are bolts that that I will be using. They are a 1/4 and they're 2 inches long. So could probably do with a little bit longer. Maybe some washers to make up the difference. But they keep the springs compressed while you undo the other bolts. If you don't put these in, there's a good chance that the pressure on the springs will still be there when these mounting bolts reach the end of their thread, and you could pull the last couple of threads out of your flywheel. They don't have to be really tight, they're just there to take the pressure off the springs. I'm using a 1/2 inch socket on these. I've left one top one just to hold it so it doesn't just fall onto the ground. Okay, that's the last bolt. Try and get this without dropping it. There we go. And there's the clutch plate. Clutch plate inside there. Here's the PTO clutch plate. Now I'm going to try and get the seized bearing out. Okay, it's one spring off. I'm just grabbing the spring on the side and unhooking it. I'm going to pull the bearing out of the flywheel. I've got a pilot bearing puller. The bearings started coming out. I've run out of thread on the puller, so I could either put something under the legs, but what I think I'll do is adjust it to go wider and have it sit up on top of these bolts. Can even wind that out by hand now. There we go. Now I'm going to get the bearing off the bearing carrier. That bearing's seized. So I've got two pieces of wood. So that's just sitting on the bearing. Piece of pipe. It's about 60 millimeters across. So it sits on top of the carrier but will travel through the bearing. So just tap on the bit of pipe. It's starting to come away. There we go. So that bit of pipe, 60 millimeter, and can travel through the bearing with a bit of room.